I'm Dr. Don Palme, and I'm a principal scientist working with NAMSA in the area of regulatory issues and compliance. The presentation today was to look at the medical device industry and what's being required from a preclinical regulatory testing, in particular focusing on biocompatibility and the changes that have been implemented in that area, and hopefully changes that are coming so that I can bring people up to date and let them know what to expect in the next year or so. From an innovative standpoint, I think the majority of the changes that I see coming from the medical device industry is changing to address the current clinical needs. For example, there's a large effort in the area of combination devices, in particular to address devices that become infected. So you're seeing a lot more coating technologies being brought forward, coating technologies for drug delivery and antimicrobial component delivery. You're seeing design changes to address that because it's a major impact on the medical device industry right now. Financially, it impacts the hospital units, which then drives which device they buy and then which devices the medical device companies can sell. From the future, from a regulatory standpoint, the agency is getting much more critical with reviewing of the data, the protocols, the decision processes, and they're asking for much more in the terms of science and from a risk assessment analysis. So a lot of times when submissions go in, it used to be very checkbox, this is what the guidance says, so this is what we expect you to do, and it's changing now. They're saying not only do that, but we want to see your risk assessment, who evaluated your risk assessment. We've seen recently submissions being rejected because the person who had performed the risk assessment was not an expert in the field. And so that's becoming much more part of the regulatory landscape. So barriers in innovation really come down to the fact that medical devices is a regulated environment. And the regulated environment means that whatever country you go to, they require medical device companies to step through certain hoops. And regardless of whether there's a lot of hoops or less hoops, it still is hoops that you have to step through. And you have to step through correctly in an untimely manner in order to get your device approved. The barriers that I'm seeing are just from the standpoint of the agencies want to see more science, more expertise, in having the appropriate people participate in review in the device design, and that's leading to a little bit less innovation because it's harder and harder to be more innovative when you have to restrict yourself down to jumping through the same hoops time and time again. I think the takeaway message is that for the small companies, don't panic when you do see the regulatory hoops that you have to jump through. Everyone has the same barriers, everyone has the same issues. For the large companies, it's just a matter of being patient. It's always great to meet metrics and milestones for a financial goal. And the regulatory agencies don't care about that. They're more interested in patient safety, which is a very good thing. I don't like and don't agree with a lot of regulations, but when it comes to patient safety, that is the premier issue that all medical device companies have to keep in mind. And you tend to see that go by the wayside when they make business decisions. I've been very impressed, though, that historically we've done that correctly, at least here in the United States. So I think the biggest barrier that the companies face is just the hoops they have to jump through. They have to have the patience to jump through them, right? And they have to have the experts on hand in order to know which hoops to jump through and at what time. So it's as time as much as the hoops that they have to jump through. I think from an innovative standpoint, the small startup medical device companies will always be innovative. That's the whole basis of why they exist. And the larger companies have to keep their minds open to that innovativeness and then be able to capture and bring that in when it's appropriate. You're seeing a lot more of that happen now. From a testing environment, it's becoming much more conservative. It's becoming much more The guidelines are being seen much more as rules and regulations than they are as guidelines, so there's much less forgiveness in that area. But still, companies need to constructively look at all things like that and keep that in mind. The testing has been so standardized for years that there's really nothing new in there. What is new is the approach to use experts in the field to actually look at the device, the materials, manufacturing, sterilization methods, and pull that all together in order to do an appropriate risk assessment. That's never been required before, but that is a significant component of the new guidelines that are now issued and accepted. So, although the U.S. FDA says that risk assessments don't have to be acceptable, they are training their staff to review them and know what they mean and how to interpret them. So it's interesting in that that's part of the standards they don't accept, and yet they are training to them. So I think that it's inevitable that they will accept the risk assessment in lieu of testing. So it's changing from a physical testing model to a more hypothetical envision of somebody looking at it and making a choice. My experience at the MD&M shows, they keep getting larger, more complex, more diversity, more manufacturing, both on the device side, much more innovation in new materials available for device manufacturing. And you're seeing actually the device companies now starting to be presented here because there's so much integration across the device fields now that it's important for them to even be able to show their innovativeness and new products in a way. I'm just amazed by how fast they've grown. The MD&M Minneapolis meeting, for example, has probably tripled in the last 3 years for size and not only the scientific presentations that are being given, which are significantly more detailed than they ever used to be. It's taking up a full day now of 8 rooms, which is, I can remember when it was a half a day of 1 room. So it's much more content. It's very impressive.